The Ink and Paint Club podcast is intended for mature audiences. I know we're usually talking about kids' cartoons and stuff, but there's going to be naughty language. Anyway, listener discretion is advised.
I don't want record of this.
We have to.
Can't have record of this. Is this just to get a cold opening?
Yeah.
It's fucked up that you guys use me for cold openings because I like to talk.
Yeah, but we don't put anything too incriminating. I try not to. I don't know if JD's out for blood, but
You're listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, a proud member of the Eekly Grind Podcast Network.
hey everyone, welcome to the Ink and Paint Club podcast for this week. My name is Matt. JD is out sick. I think he attended a metal show and he got brutally murdered. But hey, we have Kyle though. Kyle's here. He's around for this episode where we're talking about Metalocalypse, celebrating its 15th anniversary. What I would consider an Adult Swim classic. When I think about Adult Swim, this is definitely one of the shows that pops up in my mind.
Think of 12-ounce mouse.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a number of shows that could definitely qualify. But, I mean, at least for me, I was really into this show when it came out. Actually, yeah, so talking about, like, when it came out, like, just as a primer, like, you know, how do you feel about metal music?
Some are good, some are not so good.
But as,
Like,
like, as a genre, it's not one that you, like, actively seek out, or...
No. I'll probably get a lot of shit for this, but I see it as Hot Topic music. So, yeah.
I mean, a lot of metal bands do have their merchandise at Hot Topic. That is a fact. It's something that actually this show pokes fun at a little bit, because I know that a lot of the times that they do gags on this show, it'll be like, oh, you get this so-and-so residuals and a $5 Hot Topic gift card. Like,
There you go.
yeah. I was really hyped for this show just because I come from like a bit of a metal background. My dad is was the lead singer of a metal band back in the 80s. They got back together like in 2016 and doing stuff since then. So I was aware of metal music a lot as a kid, more like classic stuff, not so much this genre of metal that they do in the show, which is more like death metal type stuff. Like I was aware of like bands in that genre, but it wasn't something that I actively seeked out. Yeah, but I was at least familiar with like the genre as a whole. But yeah, it was when they were doing like the promos for it coming out and stuff, I was just so excited just because just knowing that it was done by Brendan Small, who just coming off of doing Home Movies, which is like another Adult Swim classic. Even though it didn't start on Adult Swim, started on Home Movies started on UPN, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but most of its lifespan was spent on Adult Swim, so it's an Adult Swim show. But yeah, in that show, they do like a lot of kind of music related stuff in there too, is like jokes and stuff. Like, I know there's an episode where they do like the shit. It's been a while, but they do shit with like the Wizard Man and the Baker and stuff.
Yeah, the Wizard and the Baker. That was the musical that they were doing.
Yeah, and so like they did like a lot of that type of stuff in that show. So to see Brendan Small
Franz Kafka the musical.
was that the same episode?
Oh, it was a rock opera. No, that was like early season 1.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so to see him kind of move on to a show that like did that more as like kind of its central theme was definitely an interesting premise, and just to see like how well it like even turned out, because outside of the show, the music is like legitimately good death metal. Like, I listened to the 3 albums they put out after I rewatched through the show, and I was just like, I listened to a lot of the first Death album when it came out, just because I was that much in the show at the time. Death album 2 and 3, I think I listened to like once or twice like after it came out, but I listened to the first Death album like a lot, like in high school, I think, because I think that came out 2007. I would have been like a sophomore in high school, so that was definitely a mainstay on my MP3 player. But yeah, just the show itself is it's fantastic. It's got the same it has like a limited animation. Well, not necessarily. I guess it's puppet animation basically, right? But there's a lot of like different frames that they can use like for characters and stuff.
Yeah, it's not the best animated, but sometimes you get some really special stuff.
I would say as the show went on, like the quality in that regard definitely picked up.
Oh, definitely.
It also makes more sense. Like I was just kind of reading up on the development of it, and when Brendan Small was developing the show with Tommy Blancha, Brendan actually hit up Tim and Eric asking about the budget that went into Tom Goes to the Mayor, and apparently that was actually the main basis for how much he was trying to get Metalocalypse made for. They found out that Tim and Eric was $110,000 per episode, which was surprising to me, just considering what the type of show that Tom Goes to the Mayor is. But apparently they Brendan Small hit up Titmouse and was like, "Could you do Metalocalypse for this budget?" While kind of keeping this vision that I had for it in mind, and they actually did it for $1,000 less per episode than Tom Goes to the Mayor, which was very surprising. Because I haven't seen all of Tom Goes to the Mayor, but just from what I remember about it, it's mostly fucking
it's a fucking slideshow.
Yeah, like 110,000 per episode. That's kind of outrageous to me. Like, and I'm not sure if all that's like advertising. Like, because I mean, I don't know. Tom Goes to the Mayor is not like one of those shows. I think they got promoted a lot outside of Adult Swim or anything. At least with Metalocalypse, it has that crossover appeal with like metal fans and stuff. So yeah. But yeah, for anyone unfamiliar with what Metalocalypse is, it follows the band Dethklok, which is comprised of Nathan Explosion on vocals, William Murderface on bass, Squiscar Squiggulf on lead guitar, Toki Wartooth on rhythm guitar, and Pickles the drummer on drums. And it's basically the show's format is for the first 2 seasons and the 4th season, it's 11-minute episodes, and then in season 3 they shift over to doing 22-minute episodes. And then I think in the 2nd season they had a couple 22-minute episodes too. Season 4 had less episodes than the other seasons, but they also had like a 40-minute special that kind of closed out the show. Although nobody knew that it was going to close out the show at the time, because apparently they're trying to get a season 5 made, and I guess Adult Swim just canceled the show, which is I don't know. Like, I watched Doomstar Requiem for the first time, which is the musical finale that I mentioned. I watched that for the first time, rewatching through the show, and honestly, the way that wraps up, I would say, is like a pretty good finale for the show itself. They do kind of set some stuff up there that they could follow up with, like something else, but
that's why people are mad, because it's almost like a cliffhanger, but it's kind of just open.
Yeah. A lot of the reason why I wanted to cover Metalocalypse was specifically related to the fact that in May of this year, so just for a time frame, 2015 was when the show got canceled, and then later on in 2015, Brendan Small tried to do like a, I'm not sure if it was a crowdfunding thing. It was like a campaign thing, but he tried to get like a bunch of fans to like voice their support and trying to get the show to have like a proper finale on like Hulu or something. Because he wanted to do something called the Army of the Doomstar, the final chapter. And I guess Adult Swim just wasn't interested, so it never got picked up. And then
it's funny because it was like incredibly successful from what I remember reading. Like there was a lot of support behind it, and Adult Swim has notoriously been like, yeah, no. Like, Adult Swim does not want anything to do with this show, which is why it's pretty impressive that they're actually going to be doing like a wrap up for it.
Of course, it's all in production. It could go south and it could never happen, but I'm really hoping that it doesn't. I hope it does get made, just because even though Doomstar Requiem serves as a pretty good finale for it, like if they have one last thing that they want to do is like a feature length thing, like especially now, because when you look back at Metalocalypse and how it's like the style and like how it's animated and stuff, if they're like given like a budget to do like a movie, I would love to see like what Metalocalypse could look like with like animated, like a bit more fluid. Like I think it would be, because a lot of the visuals in this show, like the animation is definitely hoisted up by like the style of the show, because it's very unlike home movies, where in home movies they look like just very, I don't want to say shitty doodles, but they're like very just sort of loose doodles of characters and stuff. And then you get the Metalocalypse, and it's like they're actually like very detailed looking, like characters, and they're moved around like flash puppetry and stuff. And I would say for the most part, like, it's very serviceable, but I always did wonder like what the show would look like, animated, like it's something like Venture Brothers.
Remember Venture Brothers when it was first out? It was very puppety animation too.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of brought the charm to it.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't deny that the later Venture Brothers stuff, like, it looks a lot better.
I mean, look, I wouldn't care if they had a pretty consistent schedule and it looked like that, than waiting 6 years for a fucking season.
That's pretty fair. Although I don't know, it's always weird, because in regards to Venture Brothers, I know it takes like years for them to put out a season, but like it's never clear as to whether that's related to actually getting animated, or if that's just them like not being able to settle like on story shit, or if
I don't know, because I do know that the main two guys write it themselves. So
yeah,
I think they at least have a idea of what they're doing.
yeah. Venture Brothers, like Metalocalypse, was a show that just earlier this year in May got announced that it's getting a movie as well, or like a special or something like that. I think it was a movie. But yeah, because that was Venture Brothers is another show that kind of just got canceled out of nowhere. Because even though it was a show that was like there from like the very early days of Adult Swim, because I think Venture Brothers started like 2003, so like 2 years into Adult Swim's life, but like it had been releasing seasons up until some years ago, and then fucking just Adult Swim just canceled it, and then bunch of fan outcry, a lot of months there where people weren't sure if they were gonna like do a continuation on HBO Max or something, and then they just fucking went on Twitter one day. It's like, hey, we greenlit a Venture Brothers movie, we greenlit another Aqua Teen movie, we greenlit a Metalocalypse movie, and it was very surprising. Hopefully like all those come through. The news of an Aqua Teen movie was definitely interesting to me, because they already did a fuckload of Aqua Teen, and it had a movie already. So that's one of those things where it's like, I was kind of surprised that got announced. I was like, especially with the stuff with Frylock's voice actor, not getting paid like fairly, or like not getting residuals or something like that. Like I'm wondering how they're gonna field any of that.
Well, like, it makes me sad too, because C. Martin Croker's dead. Like, he
Right,
passed
yeah.
away, and he did Dr. Weird and a lot of the character art, all that kind of stuff, and it's just not gonna feel the same without him.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very interesting call on their part, but I guess they kind of figured Aqua Teen is one of their big flagship shows. Like,
It's their SpongeBob, their Rugrats.
yeah, I would say so. Like, at least in terms of like longevity, like, because it went for like, God, I'm not even sure off the top of my head how long it went through. I think it went for like more than 10 years, right? That sounds about right.
I just watched the whole series on HBO Max, and it's one of those shows where it's like, there's not really a bad episode. They're all pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, because it just retains the same style of humor throughout, and I think it keeps like a lot of the same people working on it and stuff.
It's the Seinfeld formula of a show about nothing.
Yeah, which is in direct contrast to Metalocalypse, which is definitely it is a show that has an underlying plot sometimes. So the way that the show is kind of the way that it kind of progresses is that Dethklok like is going through like some weird bullshit that they have to deal with. Like in the very first episode, like their chef gets chopped up in a helicopter, and like fucking they're trying to figure out how to cook for themselves. So like they go to like the supermarket, and like they have to like buy their own groceries and like learn how to like make food and shit. And there's just like the hilarity comes from these people that are so well off and like rich and metal musicians and brutal and everything that they don't know how to do like average everyday shit like this. And then the other half of the show, well, not the other half, I would say like maybe 1/4 of the show is like dedicated to this underground or like this government institution or something. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's these group of men that sort of follow these exploits of Dethklok and kind of how they influence the media and just the world because of how huge they are, how popular they are. Like I think the goal of the show was to make a show about a band who was more popular than the Beatles ever were, and they definitely succeeded in that, because a lot of the shit that happens with the fans and to the fans and just like to even people that don't listen to Dethklok in this show is like outrageous.
They're the biggest band in the world. That's how it is.
Yeah. Just to use another example, there's it's still the same. It's the first episode where Dethklok strikes up a deal with Duncan Hill's coffee company, and they're making the most metal coffee out there, and like they play a show that's just them doing their jingle for Duncan Hill's, and it's like 30 seconds long. So all these people are traveling to, I think it's like Antarctica or something, and everyone's traveling to Antarctica just to listen to them do like 30 seconds. And in the process, like they're dumping these giant pots of like boiling coffee like on the audience and fucking like killing them and melting their faces. But for every Dethklok show, everyone that attends has to sign death waivers so that the band is absolved of any responsibility and like people dying at their shows and stuff, which is a good call because there's always people dying at these shows by just any means, like around. Like there's always not always, but there's definitely a running gag in a lot of episodes where somebody will be looking up at the sky at something that's like falling like towards them, and it'll like stab them in the chest. Like I counted at least like 3 different times that happened to 3 different people when I was rewatching. But yeah, it just it's a very good parody of metal like fans and music and like the culture and stuff. But I would say like a lot of it's definitely accurate in a lot of ways too. Like Brendan Small knew the audience that he was kind of playing to, like in the creation of the show, and that also extends to just how involved he is in like the production of the music and everything, because those albums and just the music all in the show and everything, that's all done by Brendan Small for the actual albums themselves as well, I believe, because I think he does have a set of people that he uses for live shows. But as far as like all the album stuff, I think he does most of that stuff himself. And then aside from that, he also voices like 4 of the main characters. Tommy Blancha, the co-creator, voices like the other half. Brendan voices Nathan, Squiscar, Pickles, and their manager, Charles. And then Tommy Blancha voices Toki, Willie Murderface, and Dr. Roxo, the rock and roll clown. He does cocaine.
It's just such a fun character. I love him.
Yeah, no, it's great. And then
see, the problem is I really wish they had a full album of Dr. Roxo's stuff, because I really like that song, but there's no full version of the first song that he has.
Yeah.
There's no full version of it. It sucks.
Yeah, so the albums that I mentioned earlier are just Dethklok songs, but in the show itself, they do feature like a lot of music that's not Dethklok, whether that's just like incidental music or stuff from other bands, like Kyle was mentioning. There's stuff from what the fuck is Dr. Roxo's band's name? It's shit. Hang on, it'll come to me. Razzie Blasmy? Shit, something Blasmataz. Right.
Blasmataz is what it is, yeah.
Right. Zaz Blammy Mataz. That's what it is. So yeah, there's them, and then there's like there's a Guns N' Roses parody that's Snakes and Barrels that Pickles is a member of before Dethklok.
Well, I like that because they showed like the all the bandmates had like a different life before they joined. They kind of touched down on everybody's life before the band.
Yeah. And it's weird because some of the stuff doesn't by the end of the show, some of the stuff doesn't quite line up because they do all the snakes and barrels stuff like early into the show, but then like later on you start seeing glimpses of like Dethklok in their early days, like when they're just getting signed and stuff. And Pickles is a lot younger than he was when he was in Snakes and Barrels. So that's clearly, stuff that they didn't quite have in mind when they were creating the show that just sort of like, happened later. But it is definitely interesting to see like a lot of the backstory. You see a lot of it in Doomstar Requiem, like at least how because the band themselves, it's all of them are original members except for Toki, who replaced Magnus Hammersmith as the original rhythm guitarist, and he gets kicked out of the band for being a dick. And they show in Doomstar Requiem how Toki joins the band because Squiskor is trying to convince the band to be a four-piece, that he can just do all the guitar parts himself. And he goes through like this montage of like him like out guitaring like thousands of people. And then fucking like Toki just shows up at the end of it and fucking keeps up with Squiskard just enough for him to convince them to like join the band. Okay, so yeah, I was mentioning earlier, like as far as the voice actors and stuff, you got Brendan Small and Tommy Blancha as co-creators. They voice pretty much every major character in the show. But then you have like Mark Hamill, who shows up and he voices like a lot of different like just background characters and some other like main characters like on the Tribunal and shit. And then Malcolm McDowell shows up after like a season 2 onward as like one of the characters on the Tribunal too. And then aside from that, you've got like just tons of different metal musicians that come on for guest roles, in addition to just other actors and voice actors and that sort of thing. As far as the musicians go, just like ones that I think people might know, you've got like King Diamond, you got Ace Frehley from Kiss, you've got Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top. Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, both really good guitar players. You've got like I think Kirk Hammett and James Hetfield from Metallica. George Fisher, who's the main singer of Cannibal Corpse, and who Nathan Explosion's design is based on. And just like Dweezil Zappa, Frank Zappa's kid. Devin Townsend, who I believe was Pickles' original inspiration. Jack Black is on there. Just tons of people.
Who was Jack Black?
It doesn't say on this Wikipedia list, but I think he was. I was reading about Doomstar Requiem earlier. Apparently, he voices their original manager for like a brief role, like as like a quick like throwaway thing. Slash from Guns N' Roses also on there. Yeah, just tons of people. And then you got like actual other actors and stuff that have been on there. You have Janine Garofalo, John Hamm, Chris Elliott, Werner Herzog, Patton Oswalt, Brian Posehn, who helped write a lot on the show as well. I started seeing his credit pop up as writing along with Brendan Small for a lot of the later seasons. And just tons of other names too. But yeah, it's kind of like a who's who of people that show up on that show a lot, which is just funny in direct contrast to the two co-creators doing like all the main voices themselves basically. And a lot of like stuff, like at least like starting to get like halfway into the season onwards, there's a lot of scenes where it's basically just the band talking like on top of each other. So it's just like
it looks like they did a short for Brutal Legend,
right? So
I know there's like a lot of crossover shit because they did a comic with the Goon. They had a Metalocalypse comic, and then they did a crossover with the Goon, which I really like as well.
Did you ever read that crossover?
No, I never did. But
I remember reading a little bit of it, like when it came out, like it got posted online, and I wasn't familiar with the Goon, but it was weird because Dethklok is done in the style of the show, and the Goon is done in the style of the Goon. Like,
yeah.
So to see it contrasted like that it's just so very weird. But yeah, there's a lot of cross promotional stuff that Metalocalypse has done. Like you mentioned, they did some cross promotional stuff with Brutal Legend because Mermaider is actually one of the songs that you can get on the radio in that game.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just know this from when I bought the game as a when I was playing it as a kid. But Thunder Horse is a track on Guitar Hero 2. I know that they had another song on a later Guitar Hero. I can't remember which one, but apparently they had like a 3-pack of songs that went up on Rocksmith as well, and Rocksmith is it's like Guitar Hero, but like for actually learning how to play guitar. And they had those on there. And yeah, they've just done like a lot of cross promotional stuff like that, like with the other video games. I think they did something with the Darksiders as well. I'm not sure if that was just like an ad or if they had any music in that game or anything, but yeah, they did a lot of cross promotional stuff. They also just had like a bunch of like real branding in the show as well. Like I know that the fictional band, and I guess by extension maybe Brendan Small, like doing the live shows and stuff, do have endorsements from like Gibson and stuff, like Gibson, Marshall, EMG, just like a lot of like, you know, guitar related companies, like, you know, as far as, you know, picks or amps or guitars or pedals, that sort of thing. And that was definitely something that was interesting to see, like watching as a kid, just to see like all the it's always interesting when you see like real life branding pop up in a show that has a lot of like fake branding. It was kind of like we mentioned this when we were watching or when we covered Close Enough, and they have like, you know, trucks that just say like Vaughn's like driving around in the show.
Yeah,
it's always just so bizarre, like when you see it up against the fake branding in the show. Super strange.
Jeremy Snow here, owner and editor-in-chief of The Geekly Grind. I'm interrupting your awesome, regularly scheduled programming to ensure that you know about our Geekly Grind podcast network, of which this show is a treasured member of. If you haven't had a chance to check out our site, you can do so at www.thegeeklygrind.com, and while you're there, check out the other members of our steadily growing podcast family, including the anime-centric Blake and Spencer Get Jumped, discovering new heroes and comic book keepers with Chris and Lance, exploring the vast universe of geekdom with Geeksploration, or of course appreciating animation's finer details with the Ink and Paint Club. Escape your weekly grind at the Geekly Grind.
you watched the show when it first came out, right? And you kept
Yeah.
up with it?
Yeah. I kept up with pretty much. Yeah, I kept up with the entire show, but I never got to see Doomstar Requiem until just rewatching it for the show. I don't know why that was. I think that might have been around the time when my family might have been like, we might have not been doing like cable as much. So, but I just never got around to watching it. But I was able to remember like a lot of bits from the show, like while I was rewatching, just like a lot of like stupid, like stupid jokes, like the whole shit with the bleach is mostly water, and our water makes up a portion of our bodies, therefore we are bleached, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, were you following the show like as it came out too, or?
Nope. So this came out when I was in high school, and I was friends with like metalheads, and they were like obsessive about it. And it was to the point where I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna be into this. Like, not to be what's that word? Counterculture or whatever. Not to be counterculture and anything, but it's just when people fucking act obsessive about something, it turns me off of it.
That's fair.
And I also had this thing in my head where it was just going to be a bunch of like brutal violence bullshit, just like how everything from Adult Swim is.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a turn off for me too, because I already had it pictured in my head what it was like, especially from advertisements and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, this isn't the show for me. And then like maybe a few years back, I decided, I kind of wanted to watch all the Adult Swim shows. So I saw like all of Mara Oral. Never saw that before. And then I think Dustin had posted a thing on about Metalocalypse, and I saw it and I was like, this looks pretty funny. Maybe I should check this out. And yeah, I really liked it. Like, I think it was the food library.
Yeah.
And I think pretty recently you had posted it was Nathan doing a voice or something.
Oh, was it like no, I think it was was it Pickles like imitating a trumpet?
Yeah.
Or no, it was like Murderface imitating a trumpet, and then it was Nathan. It was him like he wasn't like throwing his voice, but he was doing like a little like weird throaty like high pitched voice.
He was doing the shittiest voice. They were like, their reaction was so over the top that made me laugh.
Yeah.
because he was like, it was literally like this. Hey guys, how's it going? And I'm
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? How'd you do that? He's like, it's just a voice I invented. It's so funny.
Yeah, well, Toki can force all the bloods up into his face to give himself a real 6 blowjobs.
But that I think that's where a lot of the charm from the show comes from. You kind of touched on it earlier, but it's just that they're so out of touch that they're like almost innocent.
In
And
some respect, yeah.
it's just that little innocence that like makes me laugh because yeah, they're just so out of touch. It's really funny. A lot of the humor comes from that. There is a lot of violence, a lot of gore, but that's just pretty much expected from this.
Yeah, I would say that there's a really good balance to it. Like, there is a lot of yeah, gore and violence, but I think it's offset by just how much shitty jokes there are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, this show's kind of like Phineas and Ferb in a sense, where it's like almost every episode has a dedicated song to it. Isn't that right? Or
Yeah, I never thought I would hear Metalocalypse compared to Phineas and Ferb in that way, but you are absolutely correct. It does follow that formula. I guess the only thing
yeah,
that's missing is like a B plot in every episode where they have like I don't know, like the fucking. Well, I guess they really kind of have something in that way in regards to like the tribunal stuff, but it's not like Perry the Platypus, like in kind of the tone or anything.
yeah, and see, like the tribunal thing or whatever, that little shadowy organization. It's kind of played off as a joke at the beginning. Like it doesn't seem like it's a serious thing, but then as the show goes on, because you just kind of have this like people that hate him in a sense. But
Yeah,
as the show goes on, it gets more and more serious, and it's like develops a whole fucking plot to the very end. That's kind of interesting too.
yeah, yeah. So like I was mentioning earlier, like it does have a plot sometimes where and. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Like it's mostly as the show goes on, it starts to because the name of the show is Metalocalypse, and that is I can actual like even though the band's name is called Dethklok, like I think there's a lot of people that are not familiar with the show that there's a misconception there that they think the band is called like Metalocalypse or something. I think originally they did want to call the show Dethklok, but there was something like weird with licensing or something. I think there was already another band called Dethklok, but like Deathchclock, and so that's the reason why this Dethklok is spelled Dethklok. But I think they wanted to call the show like Dethklok Metalocalypse, and then like they decided that was like a bit too much of like a mouthful.
Yeah.
Not nearly on the level of something like Brad Neely's Harg Nolan Sclopio Pipio, but
Yeah. But I do
fucking
like that. I like
yeah.
that really stuff.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about some fucking Brad Neely shit on this show someday. He does some great work.
Dude, I fucking love China, Illinois.
Even like his preach, and you know what? That's like a Adult Swim connection there too, because a lot of that early Brad Neely stuff was on Super Deluxe, which is like got advertised a lot on Adult Swim back in the day.
Yeah.
That was how I even found out about like about baby cakes and stuff, like long before China, Illinois was like a show.
I found baby cakes just like out of the blue. It was after Super Deluxe ended, but it was way before China, Illinois' show.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Just I discovered baby cakes and like watched all those, and then discovered like Professor Brothers after that, and then
Yeah.
and then like they did the like the original China Illinois pilot, I guess, and then yeah, the show came much later.
Great stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, as far as just like other funny bits from the show, the one that I think of the most, the one that I actually quote like probably a lot more than I ever realized, but there's a bit in the show where Dr. Roxo, the rock and roll clown, he doesn't break into Mordhouse, which is where Dethklok lives. He's made friends with Toki, and Toki brings him by, but the band doesn't want him there, and so fucking their manager Charles is like, oh, I'm so sorry, Dr. Roxo, we'll take you home, and like he pulls one of the henchmen aside, and like he just goes, put the boots to him, medium style.
Yeah.
And then it's just the silhouettes of the fucking henchmen just like kicking the shit out of him. Just like, go home, clown. Like, Oh god.
I don't know. I fucking love Dr. Roxo. He's such a great character.
He does cocaine.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love every episode with him in it. But like,
Yeah.
I can't really think of a specific joke that I like, but I do like every time Toki gets a song because it's just like poppy, like it's just
Yeah.
a pop type song, and it's fucking great. And then like I've told you before, this song "Partying Around the World" is my
From
favorite.
Yeah, from Doomstar Requiem.
They
It's
they
a really
brought
good
up
bit.
they brought up the fact that since Toki's missing, they did a song in the style of Toki, and I just think that's fucking brilliant. It's so good.
Yeah, and it's not just the type of song, it's how the visuals enhance it because it's in direct contrast to how like when Dethklok plays, it has a lot of this dark, like brooding, bloody imagery, and then you get to the Toki shit, and it's all like fucking rainbows and just like neon and like unicorns and cats and just like I don't know how many times I've seen that from partying around the world. The still image of Squiscar, like when it just says crystals meths. Like,
Love that.
yeah,
There's the song that he did with the cat. I like that episode where he what was it? They found out someone was gonna die or something.
yeah. There was it was like a Make-A-Wish Foundation kid or something, and wanted to meet Toki, but Toki like didn't want to associate himself with kids, and like he started putting on like a lot more like spikes and like talking in a spooky voice, like.
Yeah, but he does a song with the cat because they got the cat and it was gonna die or something like that. Someone was gonna die,
Oh, it
so
was
they stopped.
they think Pickles is gonna die because everyone switched their blood work with each other, and fucking
Yeah,
Pickles switched it with the cat.
yeah, but it was because he thought he was gonna like die of drug overdose or something.
Yeah,
Cookie gets a song and it's all rainbows and he's got his head on a cat body.
yeah, that's the one where fucking Murderface jacks off on a doctor's face.
He just he keeps scream repeating it.
Yeah, in
It's
that
so
song.
fucking great.
Oh man. Yeah, like just in general concepts of the episodes too. There's one where Dethklok adopts a fat kid because they think they can write him off for tax purposes.
Yeah.
There's the one that introduces Dr. Oxo, which is Murderface's birthday party, where they get him the most brutal birthday gift, which is nothing. Like they drop a box and it's just completely empty. And then it turns out that they actually got him like a fucking like a complete a demolition derby like racetrack, and they get him the car that JFK was shot in with the theater seat that Lincoln was in when he got shot. Like,
There was. I'm trying to think of what the setup was, but was it Murderface was blindfolded or something, and Dr. Roxo like got really close in his ear?
No, that was the episode I mentioned earlier when Toki like makes friends with him for the first time. He brings him to Mord House, and everyone's like is passed out in the living room. And yeah, Dr. Roxo just sneaks up on fucking Murderface and puts his hand in his pocket and just whispers. He goes, "I do cocaine."
It just his scream was so great.
Yeah, because fucking Murderface is like screaming like really loud, and then Roxo is just like doing a little like, eh, like
He screams too. Yeah.
yeah. There's the episode where Dethklok is they want to get in touch with their roots, so they join a Dethklok tribute band called Thunder Horse that Toki plays Squiscar in, and they kick everyone else out of the band, and so they become their own tribute band. There's and like some of these episodes do actually have like repercussions like later on too. There's an episode that's like, I'm not sure if it's Fan Clock or if it's a different one, but it's they have like a fan day where like everyone shows up to Mord House, and like they just everyone's like their rooms are on display, and you can kind of just see Dethklok as they're in the creative process. And then they have like the two brothers that, you know, one of them like ends up getting killed, and like the other one, the one in the wheelchair like escapes later, and then like he actually teams up with like the brother of another guy who went undercover as one of the henchmen to try to take out Dethklok because he's working with the tribunal or something. And then I'm not sure if they're the Revengeancers. I think that's what they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's another like underlying thing too in connection with like the tribunal shit. Like there's just like a lot of these different groups that are like ex Dethklok fans or personnel, whatever, that have it out for the band, but because they're so like fucking huge, like there's not really anything they can do about them. And usually that kind of just dictates like the season finales, where it just like these really huge ass events happen. You get like I think the season 2 finale is the one where it looks like their manager gets killed by the dude in the metal mask. And then you got like the season 4 one ends with, it looks like Dethklok's gonna break up, and then they reunite like basically at the last second, but like it's at the funeral for their the president of the label that they're on or something. And that's all shit that leads directly in Doomstar Requiem, which is, like at this point, the finale of the show. But, that movie's coming, either, well, probably like next year or maybe the year after that or something. But it is, most of the show just kind of takes place like, you don't have to watch any particular order. And then there's some episodes that, do have like some story repercussions in them as well.
Yeah.
There's the episode where Toki goes to rock and roll camp, not as a counselor, but as a camper. And he gets paired up with the original Dethklok rhythm guitarist. And there's that whole bit in there where he's getting like bullied by a guy who like makes him eat an entire slice of cake without his diabetic medicine or his insulin. Yeah, just fucking. There's a lot of great fucking episodes here. I'm a little bit hard pressed to like pick like a favorite, especially just because rewatching them, it was kind of like I just rewatched like a season like per night. But yeah, probably something like in like one of those first 2 seasons, because those are the ones that like are rewatched like a lot on like reruns and stuff.
As far as the how you said that stuff gets brought up a lot. They talk a lot about that album that they released. What is it? The Underwater album that they had made?
Yeah.
They bring that up a lot. I don't know. That's almost like the entire series, and they were making money. And then I think in Doomstar, they're talking about the album selling out because Toki's gone. And
oh, right. Yeah, because there's a lot of like everyone in the media and like the fans are asking like where the hell he is, because it hasn't gone public that he got kidnapped along with their producer. Who gets introduced in that season 4?
There's the agent guy that like I think he was the one that was helping with the Underwater album, and you think he dies at the end or something like that. Something happens.
Dick Nubler, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something happens, and you think he dies, and then he comes back and he's got like robot parts, but he becomes kind of like a mainstay character too.
Yeah, okay, so that episode, actually, the one where they actually go underwater and record the album, I remember the bump in relation to that episode getting played a lot, where it's that scene at the very end where he's in the submarine and it's like decompressing, like, and it's 30 seconds of him just screaming, and then like it cuts out right before his eyes explode in the episode, and like it's just playing that Thunder Horse over the whole thing. Like, and I think that's like the most memorable like Dethklok commercial that I can remember, aside from like the one where they were showing the bit from the first episode, like with the food libraries. There's fucking a lot of great bits, a lot of great episodes. Man. Yeah,
it's great. I remember there was a lot of merchandise too, a lot of T-shirts that people would wear to like school and stuff. There was a Kid Robot toy that came out. I don't know if you knew that.
I seem to recall some figures like around the time, but I didn't pay much attention to them at the time.
Kind of just shitty blind box figures, but I mean figures nonetheless.
Sure.
I want to say they didn't. I want to say there was action figures, but I really doubt it. And then of course the albums, the comics, like it was a pretty big deal. This was time when DVDs came out, so it was a pretty fucking big deal to get DVD box sets and stuff. Now it
Yeah,
doesn't
totally.
matter.
Yeah, I mean, just as far as like being marketable and like having that avenue of revenue for Adult Swim, it really is interesting that they decided to can the show. Especially like I imagine that they weren't sticking to that original budget that I mentioned. Like I'm assuming that their budget increased like with the seasons as they came, but like yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's unlike any of the other shows that are featured on the network. Like I would say that Metalocalypse is probably one of the more profitable ones they had in their repertoire. Like it's just surprising that it got canceled at all.
Yeah, and it's funny because if you ever look at anything Adult Swim ever posts, if it's a fucking comic, if it's a contest, if it's like a new episode of Rick and Morty, whatever, you always have a bunch of shitheads saying bring back Metalocalypse, and it's almost like the entire comment section. And it's just weird that they constantly get ignored for that, showing that, there's this huge fan base. It's just wild.
Yeah, and
And
I
I
guess
think,
that's
and like you said earlier, Brendan Small wants to bring it back too, and Adult Swim's just like, nah, we're good.
until they announce that they're doing the movie. And I guess that one absolutely just as in regards to like the years of fans just like constantly badgering them about like getting a continuation or like an actual movie finale or whatever. The Venture Brothers one absolutely makes sense because that one was much in the same way. Like, well, not necessarily in the same way because Venture Brothers never had like something in the way of like Doomstar Requiem that could service as like a really good finale. It's been so
Uh,
long since I've watched the
they
last season
kind
of Venture Brothers. I can't even remember how that season ended.
they kind of did. There was an episode that would have been perfect, and I would have been a-okay with it. It was the prom episode. If
Oh,
they
were
would
they?
have, and what's up?
Was that the one that where they were like having prom in the garage, like at the Venture Brothers
Yeah,
estate? Okay, right.
if they would have ended that, I would have been absolutely fine. But I've had a few friends bring up that there was like a lot of plot points that weren't connected, or they didn't end certain plot points, so it kind of
Yeah,
does make sense. But fuck, man, just like 6 years a season, it sucks.
yeah. But I mean, the show's so damn good that I mean, you can't really, can't be mad at them too much for taking too long with it. Aside from the fact that there was always a real possibility that we get canceled, and it did. Uh,
Yeah,
although it took like quite a while for them to finally do that. Although that was also directly in relation to like management changing too, right?
I was gonna just bring that up. It was right when Laszlo stepped down that they were like, "Yep, nope, we're doing this." It's
Was
always a
that
thing.
would that have lined up with like the Metalocalypse thing too? Because I mean, when did they? Well, they officially like announced Venture Brothers was canceled like in 2019, right?
What was fucked up because remember someone had made a thread on Twitter saying like, "What's the most unforgivable thing a network's done to a cartoon or something?" And one of the creators said, "Cancel Venture Brothers," and that's where it started. People were like, what the fuck?" And that's how they found out.
Oh wow. Oh yes. Okay. So they never even officially announced that they'd canceled it.
I think they finally did. I think Adult Swim was like, "Yes, we know the news, all this kind of stuff." So I think they did, but it was more or less Adult Swim didn't want to do it, but it might have been like the parent company. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Because from what I heard, it had a notorious like high budget, like insane budget, and they were just like, "Nah, we're good."
Yeah, and it's like Venture Brothers is one of those things where yeah, there's like DVDs and stuff, but I mean, aside from that, it didn't have nearly the amount of like crossover potential and merchandise that Metalocalypse did.
So here's the thing. They had merch, and I feel like it all came out 1 year, and then that was it. So they did have action figures, but they were really shitty. There was a lunchbox with like big action figures, like retro style, where they're wearing real clothing.
Like old GI Joes and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had the statues from Sideshow, which I own, the
Right.
Molotov and Brock,
Yeah.
and then they had like Kid Robot shit. That was it. They didn't have like anything else. And then they would do the shirt things, but I think that the shirt club was just like in-house. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, they didn't have nearly the amount of merchandise Metalocalypse had. But I don't even think they had much merch.
Yeah. Uh, But yeah, I mean, but when you like look at the list of like stuff that Dethklok ended up showing up in like outside of the show, it's just yeah, I mean, very clearly like it was a success for Adult Swim, and yeah, just to have them just can it like is yeah, surprising. But
it does feel personal in a sense. Just like the whole Harvey Beaks thing that we've talked about, where Nick was like, "Ah, fuck this show." Like
right.
how you've read the whole drama around that, it just kind of felt like it was a personal thing with Metalocalypse.
Yeah, probably. And then in relation to Harvey Beaks, yeah, I mean, it's cool to see Greenblatt, thriving with Jellystone just recently coming out, which is, look out for our show on that, or I'll definitely be covering that.
What a great segue.
But back on to the topic of Metalocalypse and Dethklok. Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic show. It might be a little bit hard to kind of sell people on it, much in the same way that you're talking about earlier, how it does have a very specific audience in mind for it, that can be vocal and perhaps annoying about their enjoyment of the show, so that might make it a bit harder for people to kind of take the chance on it. But I mean, that's true of like a lot of stuff out there too. I think it's just specifically though with Metalocalypse, because it's metal music is not for everyone. That much is true. It is definitely like an acquired taste. But if you like metal, if you like death metal specifically, if you've never listened to Dethklok or you've never checked out Metalocalypse, like it's absolutely worth checking out. It's a hilarious show. It pokes a lot of fun at metal culture and metal fans, and just sort of like the music industry as a whole. And just aside from that, just like has a lot of like really funny, scenes and jokes and stuff. Like we barely even covered like, a fraction of like some of the hilarity that the show can hold. And then, yeah, those, the 3 albums that they put out too, the production value on those is like amazing. Like I've heard other metal albums that didn't sound as good as the one being done by what is, kind of started out as kind of like a parody band essentially. Like it's just legitimately good metal.
It's funny. I've seen concept art of this show, and it's fucking insane.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find some. I've seen some pop up on eBay, and it's like really, really good. Like I don't think the show does it too much justice.
Provided that, yeah, with the amount of budget that they got, like at least starting out, like it's amazing that they can make that show like look that way with the amount of money per episode, though. Especially, I'm still stuck on the fucking Tom Goes in the Mayor thing, man. I can't believe that show cost that much to make. And the fact that Metalocalypse had less of a budget and managed to look better than that.
Well, I bet you anything, it all went to Tim and Eric.
Like,
yeah, I bet you they pocketed like 80% of that.
I can see that. And I mean,
it's fucked up, but that's how it be.
That's Hollywood, baby.
This bitch of a world.
Yeah. But
I didn't know that myself though, so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, totally. And again, that's just one of those things. It'll be interesting to see how that new movie turns out, because if they're allocated like a actual big budget for that thing for that movie, it'll be very interesting to see like how it's like one of those things where you've seen like when Rocco and Zim like got their movies, and Rocco like more or less looks exactly like how it used to, just like in HD. And then like Zim like completely changed up, like, well, not completely. It definitely upended the visual style a bit and kind of modernized it, but like it's animated like very well, except for some key scenes that are puppeted like for budgetary concerns. But yeah,
definitely seemed like it was time.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see how that is handled, like in something like Metalocalypse, especially with a lot of the sequences that they do for like when they're playing the music and stuff. Just in how kind of fantastical it can kind of be.
It'll go from like Rugrats to Rugrats the movie.
Yeah,
I'm all for that. remember that jump was like holy shit in quality.
Yeah, when they're actually able to like get their shit animated. Have you ever seen the pilot episode for Rugrats?
Is that the one with the red shirt?
Yes, that's the one that's done. It was directed by the creator of Aeon Flux,
Yes.
so it's animated like fucking Aeon Flux,
Yeah.
and it looks insane. Just in comparison to the show that came out after it. If the Metalocalypse movie comes out animated like that, that'll definitely be something else. But maybe not. Maybe not quite to that degree. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about in relation to Metalocalypse?
Well, on the subject of video games, I read that they were trying to get a video game made. I kind of wish they did.
Yeah, I was following that at the time. There was actually footage of that because Konami was making a fucking Metalocalypse game. I think it was just called the Death Game or something. And you played as like one of their henchmen, and they fought like a bunch of mutants or something like that.
I think it was like, I remember reading it. Didn't it say it was like permadeath or something too, where you would just start as someone else?
Yeah, maybe. I have no idea about any of that, but I just remember seeing screenshots or footage or something like that around the time when it came out, and then they kind of canceled that because I guess it wasn't kind of developing the way that they wanted it to, which is like, that's, a lot of that the appeal of that game would have been being able to listen to like Dethklok music as like you're like murdering people. Like,
I mean, I guess all you got to think about is how well did the Aqua Teen game sell? How well did Harvey
Birdman
Birdman game sell?
I always wanted to play the Harvey Birdman one because that was made by Capcom and it was done in the style of Ace Attorney. Like, that seems like a match made in heaven, but I've heard the game is just okay.
I've watched a little bit of it, and it seemed to work on the same logic as the Earthworm Jim 2 quiz show.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about, or no?
I think so. It's been a while since I played Jim 2, but
yeah, it would ask you a question, and then the answer was just like completely nonsensical, and you had like 4 nonsensical answers to pick.
Okay. So yeah, it's something that's like Harvey Birdman, where if it's operating on the same sort of gameplay style of Ace Attorney, I could see how that would be maybe a turn off for some people.
Yeah.
Well, and then
interesting.
then the Aqua Teen game, like, I never played, but I'd read about it like in pre-production, like in video game magazines, and it was like a golf game, but it was also like a fighting game and like a ton of other shit. Like, it was just like a bunch of different it sounded bizarre.
It's just exactly what you would imagine.
Like an Aqua Teen game being. Yeah, probably.
What about this? I know they've done concerts, but do they have like recordings of these concerts? Are these online?
I know they did like a split EP with another metal band. I'm not sure if it was it Mastodon or somebody else. As I Lay Dying, I can't remember. Some other metal band. I'm not sure if that had live footage. There's definitely no live album, but I know that you could probably go on YouTube and find like footage of the live Dethklok performing.
Yeah, they're at Adult Swim Festival 2019, so that's pretty interesting.
Okay, well that's comforting to hear that they were at least doing stuff for Adult Swim as recently as that.
Yeah. Oh shit. This is live at San Bernardino, and that's like one of the shittiest areas right next to me. That's interesting that they played a show in San Bernardino of all places.
That must
2007. Wow.
Was that part of like Festival Supreme or something?
It says Rockstar Mayhem Festival.
Oh,
Festival Supreme was out in a beach town. I forget where it was.
Okay. Yeah,
Santa Monica.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah, I've never gotten to see Dethklok live, but because they're doing that new movie, I'm really hoping that they do like another tour or at least do some shows like in LA or something, because I would love to go see them live. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, set me up, buddy.
Let's
I just
go.
don't want to pay fucking $600 a ticket.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to pay the extravagant prices that they have to pay in show to go see the band at some of these fucking episodes.
It was that bad for the pillows, so
well, yeah, but you got scalper tickets.
I did. It was
fucking
rough, man.
I think the regular ticket, like when I bought it, I think it was like $30 or something.
Yeah. Well, when you want to go to a sold out show.
Yeah. At least you got to go.
Money. Yeah, it was fun. We saw a dead guy.
we brought that up in the last episode with Dustin. I think we have to elaborate on that. Maybe not right now, but someday.
Yeah.
All right, guys. That was our show on Metalocalypse and a bunch of kind of related stuff as well. But yeah, on Metalocalypse, definitely be on the lookout for that movie whenever that ends up coming out. I'm sure we'll be covering that in a future episode.
2025.
Whenever it ends up coming out, hopefully it still comes out. Fucking Adult Swim, don't cancel that. Don't get everyone's hopes up. Don't cancel the Venture Brothers thing either. If you need to cancel any of them, cancel the Aqua Teen thing, because there's already plenty of Aqua Teen shit out there. That'd be fine. Pay fucking Frylock's voice actor first, and then you get to doing that movie. That'll be good to go. So yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for listening to our episode on a Metalocalypse. Kyle, thank you for being here with me tonight to talk about Metalocalypse. It was a fun time.
It was a pleasure. And a pain.
But yeah, we will catch you next week for some very good cartoon talk there as well. So until next time, we will see you later.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. You can find all the links to our social media pages in the episode description. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and join our Discord. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcast. The Ink and Paint Club is happy to be part of the Geekly Grind Podcast Network. We'll see you next time.